Film has a really distinct look. Personally, I love the film look of Tarantino's films, like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and the Safdie brothers' Uncut Gems. They have such visceral and distinct looks that it seems hard to replicate that on digital formats. I recently contacted a company called dehancer. They make a plugin for DaVinci Resolve. The awesome thing about this plugin is it allows you to add halation to all parts of the image easily with one click. We can get crazy and add huge bars like Cinestill 800T, or even keep it subtle as a way to improve skin tone slightly and add a little bit of that color bleeding into our image. Now you can do this by yourself, but having the plugin helps a ton. Being a film photographer, this is right up my alley, and might be for you too. But before we jump into how to create these film-like images in DaVinci Resolve, first, let's try to understand how film images and digital images differ in the first place. Emulsion. Film is made from a gelatin emulsion layer and little tiny silver crystals that cover the surface. These will show up as film grain when exposed and developed. Modern day films have tens of layers that each have to be exposed for certain color channels and thus have a distinct look when exposed. Films often employ push or pull techniques to emphasize certain colors or moods, which changes the way colors are developed in the end result. Due to the number of steps with exposing, developing, and image projecting to show film pictures, there is room for error along the way, often resulting in a softer and sometimes more lifelike image. Modern day cameras, however, use an array of light-sensitive semiconductors to map photons onto an image. This results in a more perfect and sharper image. There's less room for error. Now, going through the various emulsions, there's a lot of cool options for films I've never heard of, and that's so interesting to see. So you can really go out and experiment, do whatever you want with this plugin. It's really powerful. Now, my favorites to use are Kodak Vision 500T, Cinestill 800T, and Portra 400. As a film photographer, these are some of my favorite films as well. So using those and being able to incorporate it into my video is awesome. Now, this plugin is not just a one-stop shop for film looks. You're gonna have to do some alterations to your image beforehand to make everything look the way you want. But it does give you a great foundation of where to start with a lot of these film-like images. Moving on, we have halation. Have you ever wondered what those red outlines were on old films in the highlight areas, or why shooting neon signs looks 100 times better on film? This is because of something called halation. Anyone who's shot Cinestill 800T before will know exactly what I'm talking about. You can see that there are these insane red highlights on bright lights. Now, as I said before, film is exposed with a variety of layers. Well, when the light is very bright, light can bounce around inside the camera and actually re-expose some parts of the film. This is most often seen as exposing the red layer at the very bottom of the film. This most notably happens on Kodak Vision 500T. And because it's at night, there's more contrast, thus giving you a lot more of that halation. Nowadays, films have a backing layer to prevent this from happening called a remjet. However, with films like Cinestill 800T, that is removed. Now, when learning about halation, I was blown away because though we can obviously see what halation is doing to the highlights, there's actually halation going on all over the image. It actually affects the way skin looks and how shadows look and everything. Just because the light is bouncing most strongly in the highlights, it's also bouncing all over the place in the midtones and in the shadows as well. If we take a closer look at some film pictures, you can notice how the light bleeds across the image. This is a very distinct feature of film that I haven't seen digital cameras pick up, perhaps due to the array of colors or color layers and crystals. Though it's really subtle, I think this can add a sort of subconscious improvement to your image, depending on what you're trying to achieve. Moving on, we have film grain. Now, film grain is one of the most representative things about film. It is the final part of the recipe for making a film-like image, and though YouTube compression is probably going to kill this part of the video, I just want to say that the grain generated from dehancer is awesome. This is because Most people use grain overlays, and that grain has a certain pattern and it just goes over the image. The awesome thing about the dehancer plugin is that its algorithm to generate the grain, so depending on the color, depending on the brightness, and depending on the thickness of the film stock, it's going to generate the grain differently. So that is awesome to see, and playing around with the grain plugin, it's really versatile and I think it looks quite natural. Using the grain plugin, it has all the controls you would expect, like size, roughness, chroma, etc. If you guys want to go more deep, I'll put a link in the description of this video where you can check out how dehancer themselves actually has a lot of information on these topics, and you can read about it there as well. That was a lot to cover, but I hope you followed along, and by seeing this video, you've learned both how to replicate film-like images and learn more about how film differs from digital. Personally, I see myself using this plugin for a long time, as I really appreciate the depth of detail from the developer. Currently, I haven't found software for Windows that compares. And yeah, that's it for me today. I hope you like the video and learn something about how making film is a little bit different from digital. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and let me know what you think of these film style videos and if you enjoyed them. Peace.